Welcome. My name is Megan Ketchel, and I am the project manager for the Disability Employment Technical Assistance Center, or DETAC. Let me provide a quick visual description for those of you with low or no vision. I'm a white woman in my mid-30s with long blonde hair. Today, I'm wearing a gray sweater, and I have a royal blue virtual background with the DETAC logo in the top corner. We're so glad that you chose to join us today for our October National Community of Practice webinar, The Role of American Job Centers, or AJCs, in promoting access to good jobs for all. This month is extra special because it is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and our theme for Disability Employment Awareness Month this year is access to good jobs for all. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a few minutes after we run through a few administrative items. But if you're here for the DETAC National Community of Practice webinar today, you're in the right place, and this will run from about 3 o'clock to 4:30 Eastern Time. And we can go to the next slide. All right, just to start us off, I want to review a few of the accessibility features that we have in today's Zoom webinar. So in the Zoom window, you should have the ability to change your own audio settings in the webinar, and you can do that by clicking the upward arrow next to the microphone icon at the lower left of your Zoom window to change your speaker. All of our participants will remain muted throughout today's webinar, but we do invite you to submit questions through our Q&A pod, or you can also reach out to us through our Disability Employment TA Center mailbox, and my colleague Umema will drop the email address for that in the chat momentarily. We do have American Sign Language interpretation available in today's event. Please note that Zoom did make a few updates to their interface in the last couple of months. So if you do need to access ASL interpretation, we recommend that you use the Zoom desktop or app on a desktop or laptop computer rather than the mobile app. In addition, we have live closed captioning today, and we'll have Spanish machine translations as well, and the link to access those will be provided in the chat, or it may have been already. And then last but not least, if you'd like to pin a speaker or the ASL interpreter, you can do that in your own Zoom window by clicking the speaker's name and then clicking the pin option in Zoom. And we can go to the next slide. So we will have a Q&A portion later on in today's event. We do have a robust discussion plan, so we may not have quite as much Q&A as we typically do, but we do invite you to submit questions for our presenters through the Q&A pod in the Zoom window, or you can reach out to us at aodemploymentta@gmail.com to submit questions to our email inbox during the event. We will get to as many questions as we can as they are relevant for our speakers and as we have time for. And we can go to the next slide. This is our agenda for today, so we'll do a quick welcome, which we're doing now. I'll talk a little bit about National Disability Employment Awareness Month, or NDEAM, for 2024. Then we'll hear from DETAC Senior Advisor Amy Gonzalez on an overview of American Job Centers. And then we'll do a panel discussion with our 4 American Job Center representative presenters today and have Q&A, go over a few resources, and get ready to close out. And we can go to the next slide. So first, let's talk about NDEAM, or National Disability Employment Awareness Month for 2024. So as I mentioned earlier, annually in October, we recognize National Disability Employment Awareness Month, or NDEAM for short, to commemorate the many contributions that people with disabilities have made to the American workplaces and American economy. The NDEAM theme for this year, which is determined by the U.S. Department of Labor, is access to good jobs for all. And with this theme, we recognize that good quality jobs change lives and that all workers, including workers with disabilities, deserve the opportunity to prepare for, obtain, and succeed in good jobs. And now access to good jobs is important in October, but it's also important the rest of the year. And particularly here at the Administration on Disabilities Disability Employment Technical Assistance Center, or DETAC, we really recognize that employment is a critical part of community inclusion for people with disabilities. So through our national community of practice, our website, and webinars like these, we work year-round to advance competitive integrated employment and economic outcomes for people with disabilities. And we invite you to learn more at the link that's shown on the screen there. And let me just briefly describe, on the screen, we have a Access to Good Jobs for All National Disability Employment Awareness Month banner, which features a 2-lane road with a blue outline on the top of the image. And we have the link in the chat to the Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy initiative website for NDEAM, and you can access their website and find out more about our NDEAM theme for this year, as well as other resources to advance competitive integrative employment for people with disabilities. And we can go to the next slide. So during today's event, we're going to discuss the role of American Job Centers and the AJC network in providing access and opportunities to all job seekers, including with people with disabilities. And today, I'm excited to have our DETAC Senior Advisor, Amy Gonzalez, join us to talk a little bit about American Job Centers and what they are and how they're structured. And with that, Amy, I will turn it over to you to give us an overview of American Job Centers. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan, for the introduction. As she stated, my name is Amy Gonzalez, and I am the Senior Advisor to the DETAC. I have she, her pronouns, and a physical description of myself is that I am a Latina woman. I have dark brown shoulder-length hair. I'm wearing dark blue rectangular glasses, and I am participating in this webinar for my home office. So in the background, you'll see a pink canvas painting with black birds, white feathers, and yellow and blue butterflies. To the far right of that, you will see a bookshelf. Closer to that is a printer, and there's also a black futon in the background. I am just delighted to be here today to celebrate NDEAM and really talk about the structure of the American Job Centers. The American Job Centers are managed by the United States Department of Employment and Training Administration, who provide funding through state workforce boards. Now, this funding goes through different entities. It could be either a government agency, it could be a community organization, a nonprofit, or a community college. But one thing that they all have in common is the services that they can provide to job seekers with disabilities. And so we're going to hear more about that later today from the dynamic speakers that we have set to speak. There are approximately 2,400 job centers across the country. And some really cool things that job centers do is partner with other agencies under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, as we call it. So sometimes you'll see job centers co-located with partners like vocational rehabilitation. Other times you'll see them working together very closely with centers for independent living. Ideally, they are all working together, right, for that common goal to help that person with a disability obtain competitive integrated employment, be in the community, and to receive the services and supports that they need, not only to get a job, but to keep a job, right? Because that's another key ingredient of employment. It's not just obtaining the job, it's keeping that job. People with disabilities can access an array of services when they go to a job center. It really depends on that individual. So services are on a case-by-case basis. They're based on an individual's goals, their desires for employment, and really what their needs are when they come to that center. One of the strategies that job centers use across the country is something called universal design. And universal design really is focused on an AJC making services accessible and usable to people with disabilities. And I'm going to keep this high level because you're really going to hear about what that looks like from the speakers today. But it could be physical accessibility, making sure that a person with a disability is able to access that building easily, ramps or whatever accessibility features are needed. It could be programming, that accommodations are provided maybe in computer labs or classes that are offered, okay? So those are just some broad examples, but you'll hear more about what that looks like later on during this webinar. Universal design also means that there is no discrimination for services provided by a job center based upon a disability in programming and policy. So a job seeker with a disability, regardless of the severity, is able to access those services, is able to receive those services. And again, it looks a little different from center to center based on that local landscape and the shape of their system in the state, okay? Some high-level examples of some services that are provided to job seekers with disabilities can be a job seeker going in and saying, hey, I really need support beefing up my resume. I need support, you know, adding some of this work experience that I have. Well, they can access services there to help with that, but they can also access services to help with skill building, with upskilling, right? Adding more experience and skills to that resume for a specific job goal that they may have in mind. Perhaps maybe a person with a disability has updated that resume, but needs some one-on-one help with some job search assistance. Well, someone at a local job center can help them understand what that labor market information looks like, what some of the employment trends are in some of those high demand, high growth occupations, right, in a person's local area. Sometimes a person wants a specific job that requires a unique set of training, right, or skills. A job center can help that person acquire some of that training that they need, maybe through working in a program like pre-apprenticeship or an apprenticeship program, right? Other times a person may just want to go into a computer lab and work, you know, in that lab on some skills independently, which are, you know, accessible at an American Job Center. Other times, an individual may need specific tools for a job that, you know, or special equipment that an AJ Center, Job Center can help provide. And so, like I mentioned, services are tailored on an individual basis. They can be provided to folks maybe with little to no work history. And oftentimes there are individuals that are maybe reintegrating into the world of work, whether through, you know, medical leave or incarceration. Help can be provided to those individuals as well. But I think the gist of it is that your American Job Center is a resource at your disposal. Oftentimes, so many people say, well, we've never heard of this job center. We've never heard of this opportunity to have free training, free services and supports. So here we are today educating you about the array of services. Tap into your center. If you're not sure where your local job center is in your area, we encourage you to check out the link www.careeronestop.org/local help/service locator. And I think they can plug that link in the chat to check out where your local center is. Most times there is more than one center in a state. And so whatever center is closest to you is where you can access that services. And so now what I will do is I will turn it over to Megan, who will introduce the speakers today, who you will hear more about those direct services and supports that they are providing to job seekers with disabilities. So take it away, Megan. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amy, for providing that helpful overview and background about American Job Centers. You're right, we're going to move into our panel discussion today, and we can go to the next slide and I'll talk a little bit about our speakers. So today we're going to hear from 4 different panelists who work at American Job Centers. We have 1 representative from a job center in New York, as well as 3 from job centers in Colorado. And so on this slide, I want to give each of them an opportunity to introduce themselves. And Leah, Lindsay, Robert, and Blake, I invite you all to join on video, and we can get started on introductions. So first off, let's start with Leah. Leah, do you mind just providing a quick intro and visual description of yourself?
Thanks, Megan. My name is Leah Weiler Gallagher. I'm the Disability Program Navigator at Arapahoe Douglas Works in Colorado. I'm also the Career Services Lead on my team. I'm a white woman in my early 30s with long brown wavy hair, and I have a blurred background, so not much going on back there, but happy to be here.
Thanks, Leah. And Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Hi everyone. So my name is Lindsay Murphy, she, her pronouns. I am a white woman in my 30s with long brown hair and glasses, wearing a red top and black blazer. I am the Disability Resource Coordinator under New York SCIA, which is covering New York State. And I cover Monroe County, specifically located at Rochester Works Career Center.
Thanks, Lindsay. Robert, if you wouldn't mind providing a quick introduction and description.
Yes. I am Robert F. Morris II. I'm the Disability Program Navigator for Workforce Boulder County. I'm a Black male in my mid-50s. I have short, spiky black hair. I'm wearing a light blue shirt, and my background is blurred. And we provide services to all the consumers within Boulder County, including our mountain area residents.
Thanks so much, Robert. And last but not least, Blake, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure, thanks, Megan. My name is Blake Dowling. I am the Disability Program Navigator at Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development. We serve people in Northern Colorado. I'm a white woman in my 40s with blondish hair. I have a white shirt on with a black sweater, and I have a green background with the Larimer County logo.
Thanks so much, Blake. And I just want to start off by saying thank you all so much for being here with us today and for participating in this discussion. I'm very excited to hear what all of you have to share and what your centers are working on. So thanks for being here with us to celebrate National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And with that, we're going to go over to the next slide, and I'm going to have Leah talk a little bit about the Colorado Disability Program Navigator Program, or DPN. So Leah, you can take it away.
Awesome. Yeah. So the state of Colorado kind of repiloted the DPN program about 2.5 years ago. And the main goal of this program, or the main purpose of the DPN role within the AJCs, is to be a liaison between the Division of Vocational Rehab, we call it DVR in Colorado, and our local workforce areas. So we are each partnered with our local DVR office to provide referrals back and forth to each other, and provide technical assistance and training to staff. So DPNs will present to DVR and other WIOA partner staff about the DPN role, about AJC services as a whole. And we also provide just the technical assistance of helping different community partners with disability specific topics, especially as they relate to employment. And we're also here, to make sure that we have a sequencing of services between these organizations, and that we're really braiding our funding and not repeating funding between our organizations for our job seekers. DPNs are also here to ensure that our physical AJCs are accessible, and that our programs and everything are designed with accessibility in mind. And when the state created these roles, we do have 10 DPNs across the state, kind of representing all of our different areas. the goal really was to increase the job seekers with disabilities that were coming through workforce doors, and not just making it so that if somebody came into an AJC and disclosed a disability that they were just being sent off to DVR, because it's not always a perfect fit for everybody, especially maybe at their initial phase of inquiring about services. So we're here to ensure that the referrals that are going to DVR are quality referrals, ensuring that AJC staff are able to help our job seekers with disabilities and really understand the additional accommodations they may need, and just additional, topics they may want to talk about, such as accommodation, Social Security, those types of things. And then we are also, as I kind of alluded to before, we want to align services and decrease duplication between AJCs and vocational rehab. And, primarily we're here to increase employment outcomes for our job seekers in Colorado with disabilities, to hopefully contribute to our economy as a whole. So we'll kind of get more into the weeds of how the DPN role fits within the AJCs, but this is just a bit of an overview of why we were created and kind of the main purpose of our role.
Thanks so much, Leah. That's really helpful, and looking forward to learning more as we get into our discussion. And Rebecca, we can go to the next slide. And I will turn it over to Lindsay from New York to talk a little bit about the SCION program.
Thank you. So New York SCION, or Systems Change and Inclusive Opportunities Network, was launched in January 2022 to address employment challenges for individuals with disabilities across New York State. So as that name states, the initiative aims to create inclusive opportunities and drive systems change to improve employment outcomes for people with disabilities in New York. And it also aims to expand access to career services and provide comprehensive support and resources to enable successful employment for people with disabilities. And SCION really promotes a collaborative approach. So New York SCION is a joint effort involving multiple stakeholders to develop and implement solutions that address the employment needs of individuals with disabilities. So under New York SCION, there are disability resource coordinators across New York State. We are up to, I believe, around 27 of us now. And we're all tied in with the local American Job Centers that are operating in our respective counties. DRCs, or Disability Resource Coordinators, DRC for short, have a variety of roles, including acting as a resource for staff at career centers regarding working with customers with a disability, strengthening relationships with businesses to promote the hiring of individuals with disabilities, providing resources and support for job seekers and businesses for implementing accommodations in the workplace, coordinating integrated resource teams, or IRTs, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, operate the Ticket to Work program, provide benefits advisement, and facilitate disability-specific workshops. So more information on these services will be provided throughout our panel today. I'll turn it back over to Megan.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. And thank you to you and Leah for giving those quick overviews before we get into our discussion. So we can go ahead to the next slide. And at this point, we're going to jump into more of an interactive discussion portion of our event today. So we're excited to have these 4 speakers on the line, and we're going to hear each of their perspectives on these different discussion questions that we've laid out to kind of get into the weeds on the work of American Job Centers. So to start us off, we'd like to talk about what types of employment services that each of your centers offer in the community. I know we touched on this briefly, but can go into a bit more detail. And then in particular, what types of innovative practices you've implemented to serve people with disabilities. So why don't we start off with Lindsay? And Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind sharing on these questions.
Absolutely. So for our career center, we are open to the community, and we assist through one-on-one career advisement appointments, career assessments, exploration of different jobs, and teaching just general job search skills. And so like I said, it could be through one-on-one appointments, but we also offer a plethora of workshops. So our workshops are offered in person and virtual. Some of them are hybrid. And they are covering everything from writing a resume to owning your own business. And we're always looking to create more workshops as times evolve. And now with AI kind of coming into play a little bit more, we're looking at creating some more workshops related to AI, specifically using things like ChatGPT for helping with writing resumes or exploring different career pathways. And under Scion, I specifically offer workshops related to disability, including a disability and disclosure workshop, disability job search group, and one called Increase Your Income, which is focusing on providing work incentive information related to SSI or SSDI and individuals who are returning to work receiving those benefits. Our Career Center also has training grant funding for individuals who need financial assistance with pursuing a community training program, and some specialized programming called Enhanced Recovery Services through some other opioid grants. And our Career Center has a business services department, and they hold on-site recruiting events every week at the Career Center, job fairs in the community, and work with employers to offer on-the-job training or work tryout grants. And they also operate our job board. So it's similar to other online job boards, but this one is focused on local employers and employers that we have connections with in our community. And we also have our youth services, which is assisting in-school youth for summer or year-round employment, as well as a navigator program for out-of-school youth focused on resume development, interviewing, etc. And our youth program connects with local schools and provides workshops on different topics, including our new virtual reality headsets, which is very exciting.
That's great. Thanks so much, Lindsay, for sharing. And I think next we're going to hear from Leah on the employment services at your AJC and any innovative practices.
Yeah, so a lot of our services are going to look very similar to what Lindsay had just outlined, as well as what was gone over in the presentation by Amy. So those one-on-one appointments, workshops, hiring events, career fairs. As far as some of the innovative practices, from our business services team, I work specifically with one of our representatives who kind of focuses on the disability community so that we can have some events each year that are geared towards our job seekers with disabilities and just ensuring that the employers that are there are, aware and open to this population, and also trying to find employers that will meet the needs of this population. For example, maybe having part-time opportunities that aren't always available for people who are seeking part-time work. We've also done a lot of community outreach to touch base with different schools, community partners, nonprofits, all the different things you can think of to kind of get the word out about our services and learning how we can partner. Another thing that my location has done that I think has been really helpful for people is they paid for me to receive a certification as a work incentive planner. So I'm able to really talk with individuals if they are currently receiving Social Security disability benefits about how employment can impact those benefits so that they don't stop themselves from going to work just for fear of losing their benefits. We can really sit down and plan that out together. So I think that's been really great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I will see, Blake, I know with being in the same state, some of those services are the same that you and Leah's center and Robert's center offer, but is there anything in particular that your center is doing that you would say is innovative that you want to speak to?
Yeah, I would just talk about a couple of things that we've done. One thing we did recently is work with our local school districts integrative services team to put on a reverse hiring event for students who have disabilities or specific barriers to employment. A reverse hiring event is an approach where roles of the job seeker and the employers are flipped. So each student sat at a table and they were able to set up their display that included information about their interests, their likes, their skills, Some students had objects that represented themselves, and employers could ask about how those objects, basically represented their skills as an icebreaker to start conversations with those job seekers. And so the employers went around to all the students and talked about their interests to see if they might be a good fit for the company that the employer represented. And then during this event, I was able to go around and talk with the different students about what their interests were. And I ended up meeting a young man who was very interested in nature and working outdoors. So I was able to talk to him about a program that we have in Larimer County through the workforce, and it's called the Conservation Corps. And it's a program that employs 18 to 30-year-olds in the summer and the fall to work on a forestry crew to complete fire mitigation and restoration projects. There's also trail crews that work in the Rocky Mountain National Park to perform trail construction and restoration. And so in talking with him about this program, he was very excited about it. And so I was able to get his resume and bring it back, connect him with the Conservation Corps members, and he was eventually hired on as a crew member this past summer. So if this had been a traditional job fair where I was sitting at a table, we did do that earlier in the day. And so I was sitting at a table earlier in the day representing the disability program navigator role at the Larimer County workforce. And likely he would not have come up to me because that wasn't probably of interest to him, because he was just really interested in nature and outdoors. But because I was able to go and approach all the students, we were able to make that connection and able to get him employed for the summer. And then another program that we have at Larimer County is it's called Digital Roots, and it's offered to any job seeker who wants to work on their technology skills. And typically, people who are wanting to do this program have pretty limited technology skills. They're looking for a career advancement or changing their career to, something from maybe something outdoors to working with a computer. And so usually the way this program works is that we loan them a Chromebook. We put a plan in place where they learn basic computer skills, basic internet skills, and basic email skills. And then the plan is typically 3 months long. And then once that's completed, there's usually some job seeking responsibilities that go along with it. When that plan is completed, then the job seeker gets to keep the Chromebook. About 6 months ago, I asked if I could be a digital navigator so that I could work with people that have disabilities, so that I could create plans with them that are specific to their needs, provide, accommodations to those plans. So maybe somebody might have a learning disability where they need 6 months to complete this program as opposed to 3. And so in doing that, we've also been able to purchase assistive technology for people. So maybe larger keyboards or keyboards with color contrast for people with low vision, a trackball mouse, something like that, if they're needing any kind of adaptive equipment, and then they get to keep that. And then when they complete the program, they also get to keep that Chromebook.
That's great. Thanks so much, Blake, for sharing. I actually saw a couple of questions come in about the reverse job fair, so we'll have to come back to those. But next up, I'd like to turn it to Robert to talk a little bit about some of the innovations that your center is doing. Robert?
Thanks, Megan. I'd like to point out that we also provide services for our disabled veterans. We have some really great veterans representatives who provide all the assistance that a veteran might need, a veteran of any armed forces or maybe a current participant in the armed forces. They come in, we do the triage forms and the referrals to those to our veterans representatives. And just to show how they are connected to the community, we partner with a community representative who provides housing for those unhoused veterans. And so once they are attached to case management for those services, they can be placed in those what we call tiny houses temporarily until they can get their own places to live, because it's more of a making sure that they are work ready rather than just job ready. Job ready means that you've got the requisite training and the experience to go into a job, but work ready means that you have all of those resources around you that are stable, your housing, your food, your medical care, your mental health care, and those types of services to make sure that once you do go to work, you can maintain and sustain, and we have more sustainability with that. Also, within the last few months, we've started the Boulder Brain Injury Support Group, and it's just a group that with 3 pillars: we gather, we support, and we profit. And it's held at the Boulder Community Health at the De La Cava building on the 3rd Thursday of every month. And we just invite brain injury survivors and the brain injury caretakers to come in and share their stories without fear of any stigma or judgment. It's called the Brain Injury Support Group on purpose because I previously worked with a traumatic brain injury support group for several years. But my belief is if it's not inclusive, it's exclusive by default. So there are several types of brain injuries. Traumatic, of course, but there's stroke, there's encephalitis, there's dementia. And so if anyone has survived or cared for anyone with those types of conditions, they are more than welcome. And we operate by Vegas rules. What's said in that room stays in that room. Also, we are currently working on a supported self-employment project. And what that is that's because some people with various conditions including being neurodiverse, for them, traditional employment is not always a good fit. And so what we've done, and it's not a new thing, I was fortunate to participate in this in the first iteration of the Disability Program Navigator project. And it's a program where we've taken all the red tape and fluff out of the self-employment training. Individuals come in, they have to have a business plan that has to be approved by a panel. They have to have a support or a community support in place, and that can be their family member, someone within the community, a business owner, an incubator, or any type of individual in the community that buys into their business idea. And it's not a big business, it's a small business, kind of a niche community business. And they have to explain how this small business fits into their community and meets a need in that community. We review those business plans. If they're approved, then there's a mix of public and private funding that will be available. What that does is that gives them the opportunity to start their business with no overhead. In other words, they don't have to go to a bank seeking a loan. They don't have to draft a repayment plan, and they can get started. And it can be anything from custom jewelry to snow cone machine, window cleaning, whatever they come up with that fits into their community. And we provide supports during and after they get started.
That's great. Thanks so much, Robert, for sharing some of that about what your center is doing, and getting a lot of comments in the Q&A of just commending all of you for your work on these areas. So with that, I think we can close out our first discussion question series and go to the next slide. And we'll have Lindsay talk first about how people with disabilities can access services at an AJC, and also how you've used universal design to promote accessibility. Lindsay, can you start us off?
Yeah, sure. So as a career center, anybody in the community is able to use our services for free. So either a person can walk in, contact us themselves, or we do get referrals from many of our partnering agencies in the community. That's something that Cyan is looking to keep building as we move throughout this program. So part of my role is to be building those partnerships with other entities that could have potential customers for us to work with. some of those might be, and I see some of the questions that were coming in so far about working with access vocational rehabilitation in New York State Access VR. So we do work in partnership and refer back and forth depending on an individual's needs. It's very case by case. But we work with vocational rehabilitation, we work with mental health organizations, some case managers will refer. We do presentations for disability specific kind of populations like locally Autism Up, and presentations for their participants and their families. So we do get referrals from a lot of different agencies as well. So our services are provided in person, or like I mentioned with our workshops, we can do them remotely for ease of access for individuals who might not have the transportation or ability to get to our career center. And as far as universal design goes, so within the last year or so, Rochester Works, so here specifically, we've developed a DEIA committee. So I'm a part of that, and we utilize that concept of universal design to ensure that programmatic and physical accessibility is there for all customers. So for example, we're looking at creating plain language text for documents, and that would serve somebody, let's say, with a learning disability, as well as somebody whose first language is not English. So those are some of the things we're looking at here.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. And next, I would like to hear a little bit from Blake about kind of how people typically access services at your center.
Well, really similar to what Lindsay was saying. That's similar to how people access services in Colorado. They can just come into the workforce, so anybody can come into the workforce. You don't have to disclose that you have a disability if you don't want to. If someone does disclose that they have a disability, typically they do get referred to me just to kind of help coordinate and connect them to different resources if it is something that they're interested in receiving those services. But people can call the AJC. They just like Lindsay was saying, referrals from outside organizations. There are programs that require people work with an AJC. So like unemployment, we get referrals from DVR, we can refer back and forth from DVR. Another way is through our website. So we have forms on our website that people can fill out to apply to specific programs. People can submit their resumes for review, which, maybe they just want a resume review, but once they kind of start that process, they might find that they are also wanting other services from the job, from the workforce. And then just kind of like Lindsay talked about too, hiring events, job fairs, community events, just getting kind of the word out. People are able to make connections and get business cards and kind of get the process going. And then as far as universal design and promoting accessibility in Larimer County, I've been working with our technical lead to create presentations on making our job forms. So those forms on the website that you would fill out to apply for certain programs, making sure that they're accessible, making sure our web pages are accessible, and that our program newsletters that we send out are accessible to use with screen readers. And so we've done these presentations to our coworkers within the workforce and given them a certain period of time to make sure everything's gotten fixed and that we do have that accessibility. We've gone back and reviewed those pages with our coworkers just to ensure that we have that accessibility going. And we're not experts on the screen reader piece of it. And so I'm currently working on connecting with an individual who uses a screen reader on a regular basis to test our website and make sure that it is accessible. We've also created, sort of similar to what Lindsay was talking about, we've created an accessibility review team, and we look at physical accessibility in our building, technological accessibility and assistive technology, just to make sure that we're meeting everyone's needs. Just a few examples of things that we've added recently. We added a CapTel phone for our unemployment hotline, and we've added an Ubi Duo for participants who are deaf or hard of hearing. Our Larimer County ADA coordinator does attend those meetings as well. And then I also attend the ADA meetings that she runs. So she is the coordinator for the county, and then I'm the coordinator for the workforce. So just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Thanks so much, Blake. And we have been getting a ton of questions in the chat. We do have Q&A set aside for later, but I did want to call out a couple of things. So first off, there is a new resource on Section 188 guide for American Job Centers. So I just want to share that in the chat in case it's helpful with that resource. If I can just drop that in there. And then we also got a couple of questions related to the topics that we've talked about more recently. So I'm going to just pause for a second and take a look at what we've received to see if there is anything we want to talk about now versus waiting till a little bit later on in our event. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I do have one follow-up question for Lindsay. Lindsay, I think you mentioned a resource fair, and we had a question is wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. So we started this last year. We had a resource fair. We had almost 40 different agencies as part of this fair. And the goal of it was to assist those that are searching for work, but need those extra supports in place in various areas. So it could be help with housing, transportation, financial supports. So we started that last year. We're doing it again this year coming up in November, and we'll be incorporating a accessibility kind of job fair in addition to the resource fair. So we're going to be kind of like a one-stop shop for getting any of your needs met, plus talking with employers that have demonstrated a commitment to hiring an inclusive workforce.
Thanks, Lindsay, and hope that answered the question that we got. Coming back to our discussion here, I did want to just give Robert and Leah a chance if there's anything else you wanted to say around how people with disabilities can access services at your AJCs or on universal design and accessibility. So we'll start with Robert and then go to Leah.
Yes. Individuals with disabilities can access our services. They can come in to our workforce centers personally. Sometimes I get calls and I schedule appointments with individuals myself and sit down and do an initial assessment with them. Our most effective means of people accessing our services is through, I don't know if everyone has these, but we have service navigators that are front facing, and they process the consumer interest applications. They explain the programs to them. They determine whether or not they are ready for career exploration, job coaching, or any training funds that we have available through WIOA. So they are some amazing people, and they do some amazing work. As far as universal design, I think that it's physical, it's architectural, but it also is also internal. And for me, it starts with the training that's provided to the staff. We need to make sure that staff are ready and able to provide an environment that's conducive to people coming in and feeling comfortable and disclosing the fact that they may have some barriers or disabilities. If there are barriers within an organization, it's not conducive to helping to remove barriers for our consumers on the outside. So I start there with our universal design.
Thanks, Robert. And Leah?
Yeah, I would like to second what Robert was saying about, just educating staff. I do think that that's really important, because even though AJCs are, designed for the general public, and they may not have a lot of individual staff members that are, experts in disability, we want all of our staff to feel comfortable and having a lot of these conversations and, generally just feeling comfortable working with individuals with disabilities. Um, Outside of that, I think I've really advocated at my center just to ensure that we have that assistive technology up to date for individuals, and that people can feel comfortable when they come into the AJC, that even if I'm not there, that they know, where to find the accessible computers, that other staff knows how to help them get set up. And also just, assisting with our marketing team, and, ensuring that our documents and websites are accessible. So assisting them with things like creating alt text and getting them in touch with the WCAG guidelines and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's really a matter of just advocating and educating, to ensure that our not only physical spaces, but our programs are also designed to be accessible.
Thanks, Leah. And this, I guess, is a question for all of our panelists. So we got a question on if there's any recommended trainings out there on providing guidance to staff on how to create a welcoming environment for people with disabilities. I don't know if anyone wants to chime in on that topic.
I would always recommend people reach out to their local ADA centers. They are regional centers. So in Colorado, we utilize the Rocky Mountain ADA Center, but there's the Great Plains one. They can come in and provide free trainings to staff that can be adjusted to your business needs. And they also have a lot of free online trainings that can be done at an individual's own pace, that are like training videos around things like the ADA and some of the sub topics within that. So I would personally recommend starting there. And something I kind of forgot in my last answer, I apologize, is also speaking with local businesses about how they can, the benefits of hiring individuals with disabilities, how to write inclusive job posting, things like that, so that people are really not only within the AJC, but hopefully within our community are feeling some more of those accessibility pieces. So sorry to kind of go off track a little bit.
No, not at all. That's really helpful. And we got a couple of questions on that. So thank you. Anyone else have anything to add before we get ready to move on?
I was going to add that we've worked with just, going to the experts in the area. So folks that do have specific training in different areas of disability. So we've had specific trainings for our Career Center staff on topics like assisting somebody with autism in the Career Center, assisting people that might be working with a mental health provider. We just recently did like a de-escalation training. So we're using the local kind of experts to our advantage that provide trainings to the community, and then tailoring them more specifically for our Career Center staff.
And Megan,
Thanks so much for adding that. Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
I'm sorry. Again, going back to the from an internal point of view, I provided a training for our staff called Being Present. And the purpose of that is that they learn and appreciate and accept the value of supporting other staff members, being present for them, being available, so that they, once an individual feels supported and heard, and they know that their opinions matter, they can perform at a much more efficient level. When our stress level goes up, our cortisone in our brain goes up, and it's much harder to make sound decisions and think clearly. But if you have an individual that feels like they're supported, they can think more clearly, make more sound decisions, provide more help for our consumers, and be a much better asset to our community partners and our community in general.
Thanks, Robert. All right. I think we can go on to our next slide and our next set of discussion questions. So this one, we just have one question, and it's, what's the eligibility process to receive services at an AJC? And we'll hear from Lindsay first, and then go to Blake.
Yeah, so as we were mentioning earlier, our Career Center services are open to the public. So anyone can utilize our core Career Center services, but if you do participate in some other specialized services, such as other grants or our training grant funding, there are some other requirements, for example, like having a work authorization in the US. So, but in general, our services are pretty open. And one thing I wanted to point out as a kind of a perk when it comes to disability services, at least locally here, we don't require medical documentation to participate in some supports for individuals with disabilities searching for work. So I help customers understand why it's beneficial to use our Career Center in addition to other services like vocational rehabilitation, because there is that myth that you can only utilize maybe one or the other. And going back to when people were talking earlier about disclosure and creating that environment for folks to disclose, something we developed here is an accommodation request form, and it's provided to every customer when they attend their first appointment here. So it's normalizing what that person needs, and it's not just a blank statement of what is the accommodation you need. It's got some examples and things you can check off, in case somebody's not familiar with requesting accommodation or didn't realize that some of those things would be an accommodation.
Thanks, Lindsay. And Blake, do you want to go next?
Sure. I don't really have a lot to add to that because it's very similar in Colorado. Same kind of idea that anybody is eligible to receive services. So like general job searching, resume review, career exploration, attending workshops, mock interviews. Really all of that is open to anyone. There's no eligibility. Usually the eligibility comes in if there's some kind of funding that's going to go along with whatever services they're receiving. So if they're getting additional education or training related to their work, or if they're wanting to receive an internship that the AJC is going to pay for, then there's eligibility requirements that go along with that. And typically having a disability does make a person eligible. So that's kind of how it is at my AJC. I don't know if it's any different for Leah or Robert, but yeah, that's about it.
All right, I see Leah shaking her head. Robert, anything to add on to that?
Yeah, the only eligibility requirements have to do with the WIOA training funds. And it's not, but there's an additional piece where the cost of the training may be prohibitive. So we have a training team that looks at that and discusses that with our consumers when they want to pursue training.
Got it. Thank you. And we did receive one question just quickly for Lindsay on the accommodation request form. There was a request if that is something that can be shared. If it can't be, that's all right. But I didn't know if that is something you might be able to share. We might be able to include it in our follow-up email.
I should be able to. Yeah,
awesome.
I'll check on it, but we should be able to.
Thanks, Lindsay. All right, so moving right along, let's go to our next set of questions. And there's a couple of things on this. So first off, how do AJCs collaborate with other WIOA partners, and why are those partnerships important? And in particular, I've seen a couple of questions in the chat about the interaction between vocational rehabilitation services and AJCs. So if there's anything to comment on there, please feel free to do that. But again, we'll start with Lindsay and go from there.
Yeah, so partnership development, as I mentioned earlier, it's one of those key components of SCION. And we're partnering with, like you said, vocational rehabilitation. We're partnering with Commission for the Blind. I've worked with Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. We're partnering with the local department, New York State Department of Labor Career Center. So we actually have some staff through multiple of these entities are co-located. So for example, one day a week I go to the Department of Labor Career Center. I also go to the Access VR office and vice versa. We have some staff that are shared. And that is, I mentioned in the first part when I talked about integrated resource teams, this partnership development is really helping to facilitate those IRTs. So an integrated resource team is building a team around a job seeker. So that could involve support from multiple agencies. And it helps with defining the roles that each agency would provide to that individual. It could also involve family, friends, a case manager, a therapist. We've had a variety of different people be involved in these. But really, it's to keep everybody on the same page and helping the individual move forward with their goals. And they're meant to drive those resources and their thoughts on where they want to move as far as a career goes. So collaborating with these other partners is really key for those IRTs. And we also have locally, so the Employment Equity Coalition in Monroe County, it's a combination of local support providers, individuals with disabilities, and employers. And we, through that coalition, provide training for employers. We're a resource for an employer to reach out to with questions. But definitely the partnership for the Employment Equity Coalition is what's helping drive a lot of our events. So recently we had an event on October 1st called What's Your Vibe? And it was about creating an inclusive workplace. So it was local employers and agencies providing education and an overview of disability programs, such as inclusive apprenticeships or working with Project Search. So just some examples of the way we're partnering here.
Great. Thanks so much, Lindsay. And next we will hear from Leah.
Yeah, so probably as like DPN specifically, our relationship with our local VR office is probably the most important just because that's kind of the base of our program. And I did just want to clarify, Lindsay had mentioned the myth of people not being able to work with both VR and AJCs. And so that's part of our role, is really ensuring that people can take advantage of the services that are available from both. So at the AJC, we tend to be more focused on some of those things like resumes, interviewing, career assessments, labor market information. And then we also have the whole WIOA is really focused on that training, whereas VR, their services are going to look very different. They're not necessarily as focused on professional trainings and work-based learning experiences. So we're able to really combine their specialty in helping individuals with disabilities and some of their more relaxed rules around timelines and funding. And then we're really here to help focus on some of those specific job seeker skills. And that can really also save, our state money when we're not both providing, one individual with bus vouchers to get to a training. So kind of the idea of aligning services. I also work very closely with our local schools. So my local AJC, we actually cover 2 counties in the state, and so multiple school districts within those counties. So I'm have pretty good relationships with the teams that run their transition programs within the school district, so that I'm attending different transition, career fairs and stuff like that to help the students and their families understand what some of the options are for post-transition program, either employment or other supports. We also have, I'm participating in something called a sequencing of services group with one of our local school districts that's really combining all the different supports that are available to students with disabilities so that their families have a network of agencies they can kind of turn to and not feel like once their child graduates from high school that they have lost all these resources that do still exist within the community. Also even go into the schools and present some of our workshops that are maybe more geared towards those young adults about, how to maybe put together a resume when you don't really have much work experience. What are some of those core things to think about when getting to work? So really partner with our schools on trying to get information about employment and just general career exploration earlier for students. And then kind of like Lindsay, I've done a lot of other just general outreach to inform people about DPN and AJC services. At least at my organization, we always say that workforce is the best kept secret. So we're always surprised going out in the community how few people are aware that these free services are available to the general public for anybody who wants to work, regardless of, disability, age, all those things. So really trying to get out into the community and just spread the word, whether that's through day programs, libraries, housing and mental health organizations, our local community or our local case management agency that has the Medicaid waivers, Project Search, all that stuff. So if there are individuals that have disabilities and want to work, I think us as DPNs are really trying to get out there and create those connections, even if it's around like the ARC that's more focused on advocacy. We really just want to let people know that they have resources and options available to them.
Great, thanks so much, Leah. And Blake, anything to add on to that?
Lindsay and Leah really, touched on a majority of the kind of community outreach that I do. And so it's very similar. I did want to just say a few things about the importance of that community outreach and working with your community partners. Some of the things that we do is we create community mapping from the information that we gain from those organizations. So basically just compiling that information in like a spreadsheet, something like that, that you can share with your coworkers so that it's not like you're just going out making these connections and you're the only one that knows about these different organizations that support or serve people that have disabilities, that everybody in your organization can also have that information and be sharing that as needed. It increases our knowledge of services in the community, helps us to connect job seekers with disabilities to resources in the community that, are related to whatever their needs or barriers to employment might be. It's just important also in generating referrals to and from the community partners and the AJCs. And then, I wanted to touch on the voc rehab and just how important it is. And Leah really did a great job of talking about that. So just to kind of emphasize that that's just a really important partnership that, especially in Colorado, we're really trying to strengthen that partnership between the AJCs and the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation.
Great, thanks. And there's one follow-up question, just kind of digging into this coordination between AJCs and VR again. I guess, is there a process that the AJCs use to determine when to refer someone to VR versus the AJC services? Or I know a case can be open with both, so I don't know if there's any process for kind of determining where is the best place for someone to go for support. I'm not sure if there's somebody in particular that wants to take that, so feel free to chime in.
I'd be happy to touch on that. In Colorado, I think that each local area has their own processes for this. So as DPNs, with the relationship we've built with our local VR offices, we've been able to kind of each individually create what the best practices for actually sending the referrals and when is the best time. So I would say a lot of the time, if I meet with a job seeker who may be a good fit for, VR services down the road, I want to ensure before sending a referral that they have a general career goal in mind that they're working towards. Because we have the tools, I believe, to help them kind of do career exploration a little bit better than VR. So I want to make sure that I'm sending them there with a goal in mind, also with an awareness that they will have to have some kind of proof of their disability, so that hopefully they can be made eligible a lot quicker in the process than VR waiting for them to receive medical records from their doctor. So certain things like that, I want to ensure people are aware of, as well as the anticipated timeline with DVR. And then on the flip side, I think that DVR will send people a lot to us for our amazing workshops, for career exploration, for connection to apprenticeships and other work-based learning opportunities. And if someone is interested in training, the WIOA program has a fairly strict financial limitations around, $6,000 unless they're co-enrolled with a different grant. So if the training somebody's really needing to accomplish their career goal is going to be over that cost, DVR can really partner with us to ensure that we can, support that individual through the training that makes the most sense for them, regardless if the WIOA restrictions might be too limiting. So those are some of the examples of when we send referrals, but as far as how is going to look pretty different, I believe.
Well, that's helpful. Thanks, Leah. All right, anything else to add on this question about partnerships before we move into kind of marketing and community outreach? All right, not hearing anything, we can go to the next slide. So this is going to address a couple of the Q&As that we've received about, how to find out what services are available, and also what types of outreach AJCs do in the community. So we'll start off with Lindsay again. And Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about how Rochester Works markets your services.
Yeah, so we actually employ a community outreach specialist his whole job is to promote our services to individuals in the community. So his focus is on underserved and underemployed populations. And so I've partnered on a lot of outreach with him. So we go to places like the local libraries. We've gone to the downtown bus transit center, public market, community events and festivals. Couple of weeks ago, we were at the Rochester Red Wings baseball game because it was Deaf Culture Night. So we attended there. So we're really just trying to, as mentioned earlier, get the word out about our secret of a career center, as well as providing presentations that are tailored for different populations or services in the area. Like I mentioned earlier, working with mental health providers or maybe housing supports, disability services. So I'll do presentations on, me and him will partner up on presentations. He'll cover like Rochester Works general services, and then I'll do a part on disability services. And some of that might include a presentation on benefits advisement and work incentives. So as Leah had mentioned earlier, our DRCs in New York State, we are also certified work incentive practitioners, so we can provide information to folks that are looking to work while receiving benefits. So through those presentations, it really develops more of that relationship and understanding of who we are and how to access our services. And we, because of the diverse nature of Rochester, so we do have a high Spanish-speaking population as well as individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing, due to the National Technical Institute for the Deaf located here at Rochester Institute of Technology. So we do employ staff who are bilingual, and some know ASL as well, and we are actively outreaching to those populations.
That's great. Thanks, Lindsay. And yeah, I think you mentioned you have some folks on staff who know ASL, and there was actually a question about people who are deaf or have hearing impairment. Do you mind just kind of reiterating some of the outreach that you have been doing to that community?
Yeah, I mean, so that's also like we did go to, special events that are deaf or hard of hearing population specific. I've worked with some mental health providers who are assisting individuals from that population. But definitely making it aware to the public that we have those supports, whether it's working with staff who know ISL or using interpreters and the ease of access for us to get interpreters or using some of that assistive technology. We're working on trying to make sure that our events are all, in-person events like a job fair has interpreters available, or at least, having that information out there on how to reach out to myself or anybody at Rochester Works to get those supports that are needed.
Awesome, thank you. And next we're gonna go to Robert to talk a little bit about some of the community outreach that you do at your center.
Yes, we started, I think last year, since I've been here, what we call a workforce on wheels. And we go out to all of our community partners and just do a presentation about what workforce can do for you. And we go through all the services, the resume services, the job search services, the online job coaching that we can make available through the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, and those types of things. But in turn, what I do is, if they're willing, I tap those partners to assist me or partner with me, or just provide a training for our workforce staff as far as what their services are and what they're available to do. Because I don't consider myself an expert in anything, including myself. But we reach out and use the expertise and the presentations of our community partners to make sure that not only do our staff they are aware and they're able to go out and share with other people, what's available in the community. Just a practical example. Let's say you have a referral from DVR for someone that needs to do job search, but they also receive supplemental security income, or SSI. If we find an appropriate job for them and they reach out and apply and are offered that job, then I can in turn reach out to one of our community partners, Centers for People with Disabilities. But they are also an employment network, which means that they are able to take, once the individual requests and receives their ticket to work, they can assign that ticket to the Centers for People with Disabilities, who will report their income for them so that they don't have to worry about not having unreported income and then being in danger of losing their supplemental security income. So we work together in fashions like that. So that's a DVR referral to an AJC referral for job search, and then a referral to CPWD for their services. So we try to keep people informed and educated, and keep them safe from having to report their own earnings, or to understand that they can receive such benefits and still work.
Yeah, that is definitely important to kind of understand the implications of working on benefits and how to go about that and navigating that. One more question for you, Robert. I think when we were prepping for the webinar, and we have a question about this in the Q&A, just working with local housing agencies and any coordination there in the community for people who are unhoused.
We get quite a few walk-ins and referrals from people who are providing services for individuals who are unhoused for whatever reason. And we keep a list of housing services, but not only that, we keep a list of our community partners who provide emergency financial assistance, food banks, mental health services, but with the housing services, as I mentioned before, our veterans work with the a community partner that provides temporary tiny house services that provide housing until they're able to find their own housing. But we also partner with the housing agencies through the county and Boulder Housing Authority to make sure people have access to and information about how they can apply for and receive housing vouchers and where those housing vouchers can be used, especially our disabled veterans who are usually our largest unhoused population and most in critical need of housing.
Thanks so much, Robert, and I hope that that question that we got in the Q&A was addressed. So appreciate you speaking to that. We are at 4:20, so we have just a little under 10 minutes left to go, and we have some resources to get through. So I'd like to pause here and just see if any of our speakers have anything else in particular they'd like to share about AJC services. It could be coming back to any of the questions that we discussed or something that you might have thought of a success story of working with someone with a disability. But just want to give everyone an opportunity to add anything else on here before we kind of move into our closeout phase for today's event. So I'll start with Lindsay, and we can just kind of go in our same order just in case there's anything else you want to add.
Yeah, if anything, I would just add that, and I think somebody mentioned this earlier about using social media to market some of our services and build those connections. And that's something that we definitely use here. And if you're not familiar with your own career center, use some of their online marketing. Check out their website. We have a lot on our website, at least. I mentioned that the job board and our workshop and recruiting events that are happening in the area. So it's definitely, you heard the phrase, the one stop. It's information about a lot of things in the community. So please check out that if you're hesitant with maybe making an appointment right now, but that could be a good place to start.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. And yeah, we just dropped that Career One Stop website in the chat one more time in case someone is looking for services in their local area. You can use that website to identify a center. Next, we'll go to Leah. Anything else to add before we get ready to close out?
I just encourage everyone to, reach out to their local AJCs. I think whether you are a job seeker, somebody who works, with job seekers, whether you work in schools, if you're a business owner, I think that all of our services being free, that there are a lot of opportunities for, every AJC to kind of help their community. And if there is something you're looking for that they don't provide, they can likely connect you with an organization that can provide it, or maybe they can work on kind of creating that. I think that it's definitely a place for a lot of innovation and creativity. So don't feel limited by maybe what already exists. I would encourage people to kind of get out there, speak with the different organizations in their community, speak with individuals about the help that is out there to help them get to work if that's what is of interest to them, and just kind of keep this conversation going, hopefully nationally.
Thanks, Leah. And Blake, anything else to add from your perspective?
Not much, just echoing what Leah said. I mean, yeah, just keeping the conversation going, and making sure that people that have disabilities are aware of the services that can be provided to them, through the AJCs, through Voc Rehab. The partnership between the two can be really powerful. Super quick story. I was working with a gentleman who was very hard of hearing, and he had some hearing devices that he got off of TV, and really had a difficult time. He had to be, right in front of me and be able to see my mouth and everything. And so I suggested Voc Rehab just so that he could get hearing aids through Voc Rehab. He was very resistant to that. He didn't want what he felt like was a handout. So there was a lot of working with him. He was working with a job specialist within my office too, who was also encouraging him to utilize that resource. So he did end up going through voc rehab and getting hearing aids. And he just the words that, you know, he expressed after receiving them, and that he felt like he was somebody now. And it had been 50 years since he had really been able to communicate with people the way that he had, and really opened up a lot of doors for that job search for him. And so just the power behind organizations working together, you know, to support people with disabilities and support people in general is really awesome. And if people can just, you know, continue to have that mentality to collaborate, I think is super important.
Yeah, that's a great story, Blake, and thanks so much for sharing. And Robert, last but certainly not least, anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I would encourage people, number one, as I said, come into the AJCs and see what they have to offer, what we have to offer. I think you'll be surprised at how much there is that we can do for individuals with disabilities or otherwise, and you do not have to disclose. I would also promote getting out into the community and sharing space with people who are not like you. Our immigrant and refugee communities are increasing exponentially, and the best way to learn how to serve them is to spend time with them in their own communities. I completely and fully buy into the philosophy of nothing about us without us. And so the best way for us to find out what their wants and needs are is to ask questions, and ask how to most effectively serve them and help them find what is for them and for their culture suitable and viable employment. We need to seek out their acceptance of us and seek out, you know, cultural humility. That way we know how to go about treating them while we're serving them.
Yeah, absolutely, Robert. Thanks for adding that. It's a very important point. Well taken, and appreciate you chiming in. All right. Well, we sort of weaved in our Q&A throughout our panelist discussion. So we're going to skip over our Q&A slide. But before I go over some of these great resources that we have, I just want to say thank you again to Lindsay, Leah, Blake, and Robert for really being with us this afternoon, and all the preparation that you put into being able to share about your respective centers and programs in your states. So thank you so much again for joining us to celebrate National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And I hope that our participants today really found value in all the important information you shared. So here's a couple of resources, and we'll drop these in the chat. So the first one is just an overview of the American Job Centers, kind of reiterating some of what you heard today and what Amy shared earlier on. Then the other three resources here. So first we have the Building Inclusive Higher Education Programs in Places Where They Don't Exist, a series of family perspectives. This is a series of profiles that our Disability Employment TA Center published about a month ago, and it features different parent leaders who are working to create inclusive higher education programs for people with disabilities in their respective states. So we really encourage you to check that out. It gives kind of an intro to what inclusive higher education is, how that impacts employment outcomes, and also hear firsthand stories from some of the parent leaders who have been involved in initiating these types of programs across the country. Then we just released a podcast last week with self-advocate and former SIL employee, or excuse me, Center for Independent Living, or SIL employee, Samantha Moreno, about debunking myths about working and the loss of benefits. So that's a great podcast that we just released on our website, and that link is dropped into the chat. And then last but not least, we have a blog with the National Association of State Head Injury Administrators on the importance of being earnest, brain injury informed competencies for employment service providers. So that's a great blog that we did with NASHA in the last couple of weeks and is live on our DETAC website, in addition to the many resources we've published over the past several years. So we can go to the next slide. And also, I'll just reiterate, saw a couple of questions come in. One, this session is recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel. And if you registered or if you attended the event today, you'll get a follow-up email as well with the links to some of the resources that we shared in the chat, as well as the recording. Again, this is the website for the National Disability Employment Awareness Month resources on the Department of Labor website. So that's www.dol.gov/agencies/ODEP/initiatives and /NDEAM. So encourage you to check that out and drop that link in the chat as well. We can go to the next slide. Here is our DETAC contact information. So if you have any questions or follow-ups from today's webinar, you can reach out to us over email. And we encourage you to visit our website, AODDisabilityEmploymentTACenter.com. That has a ton of resources specifically on disability employment, not just during NDEAM, but also throughout the year. We can go to the next slide. And last but not least, we really appreciate all of you for attending today's event, and we hope that you can provide us with some feedback on how it went. At the end of the event, this survey will pop up in your Zoom window or in a browser on your computer. And we dropped that link in the chat as well, and would greatly appreciate if you can share any feedback with us. So with that, we are going to go ahead and close out for today. Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And we hope to see you on our next webinar, which will be in January 2025. All right, thanks so much and have a great rest of your day.